I will call our meeting together, call our meeting to order. Good to see you all together on the Zoom screen. This is the meeting of the Measure X Oversight Committee. And I forget which number meeting it is, but we're starting year 4, I believe. Correct, Teresa? 4th year of our life. Good.
Yes, it's 2016. Yay. Our anniversary.
That's right. That's right. That's our anniversary. Very good. All right. So welcome to our guests and presenters today as well. We'll start with the roll call, and Maria will go down the list. And if you would unmute yourself and let her know that you are here by way when she calls your name. Okay, Maria, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay.
By the way, for those of you who don't know me, I'm sorry, I'm the chair of the the Measure X Oversight Committee going into this year. I'm Barbara Meister with the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Okay, go ahead, Maria.
Okay, League of Women Voters, Representative Janet Brennan.
Here.
Alternate Howard Fosler. I think I see. Okay, Salinas Valley Taxpayers Association, Representative Kevin Dayton.
Here.
Alternate Rick Giffen. Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association, Tom Raleigh.
Here.
Alternate Rick Hewer.
Here.
Community Voice for Aging, Kayla Boomba.
I'm here representing seniors.
Alternate Teresa Sullivan. Bicycling Advocate Victoria Beach.
Okay.
Alternate Claire
Sorry.
Rigg. Oh, hi, Victoria. Yes, I got you. Alternate Claire Rigg. Transit users, Jesus Valenzuela.
Here.
Alternate Andrea Monzo. Monterey Bay Central Labor Council, Rod Smalley. Alternate Glenn Schaller. Central Coast Builders Exchange, Cliff Fisnach. Alternate Christine Odell. Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce, John Hoot. Alternate John Bailey. No. Monterey Peninsula Chambers of Commerce, Jonathan Geisler. Or alternate Monica Lau.
Here.
Sierra Club, Scott Waltz.
Here.
Monterey Peninsula Hospitality Association, Barbara Meister.
Here.
Alternate Sam Teal. Monterey County Farm Bureau, Norm Groot. Alternate Paul Arnado.
Here.
Monterey County Office of Education, Joshua Jorn. Alternate Jared Gareth or Patrick Diebert. Representing South Monterey County, Paula Getzelman.
Here.
Alternate Carol Kenyon. I think I see her here. Representative Lulek Salinas, Chris Barrera.
Here.
Representing North County, Ron Rader. Alternate Scott Freeman. Pedestrian, Lori Ivy. Youth College, Natalie Olivas.
Maria Daniel is here for this meeting.
Oh, Daniel Hernandez.
Daniel Hernandez.
Okay, Daniel Hernandez. For pedestrian, okay, so let's see. Carpenters Union, Sean Hebert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here.
Oh, good. Okay. Keith Severson, alternate.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Chair, we have a quorum.
All right. Thanks, Maria. And again, welcome everybody. Today's agenda consists of several presentations, and we're going to begin though with public comments. Is there anyone joining us on this meeting from the public who would like to have a chance to speak on items that are not on today's agenda? If you would just use the raise hand function or physically raise your hand. I see no one here for public comment, in which case I'll close public comment. Next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, which includes approval of the minutes from our last meeting. I hope y'all have had a chance to review those. Kayla?
I'd like, I'd like to move approval of the agenda of the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, Kayla moves approval of the minutes and Sean Hebert has seconded. Any discussion? If not, those in favor, just raise your hand. All right, minutes are approved. Consent agenda is finished. Great, then let's get on with the new business here. First off, we're going to receive a presentation from the Blue Zones project. And I'm interested to see how this relates to our topic here with regard to Measure X projects and transportation. So we will turn the presentation time over to Dan Burden with Blue Zones National, I believe, and or who here is taking the presentation lead.
Well, hi, Barbara. It's
I
nice
will,
to
Barbara.
see. Oh, I'm sorry, Teresa.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kendra, I was just going to introduce Kendra, and then she will introduce the team who's here. So first of all, we are excited about this presentation. I'm sure that you all have heard about Blue Zones Project Monterey County, but this gives you an opportunity firsthand to hear from the people who are on the ground in Monterey County implementing this community project. So with that, Kendra, I would like to turn it over to you. This is Kendra Howe. She is the senior policy lead for Monterey County on this project. And there are several members of her team who are on here today, along with Dan Burton, who is the expert who's going to present to you today. So with that, Kendra, please, it's up to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you so much. Yes, there are a few of us from the local team. And so it's my pleasure to also introduce Tanya Roos. Is just joined us in December. She's going to be the community program manager for the Peninsula Cities efforts, and you'll hear more about that. And it's also my pleasure to introduce our executive director, Tiffany DiTullio, and she can give you a brief overview of what Blue Zones is and what does expansion mean for Monterey County, and then we'll introduce you to Dan. Tiffany?
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you, Teresa. It's nice to see so many familiar faces on the call. And to those of you I've not met before, it's a pleasure to meet you. Kayla, we miss seeing you as our neighbor. So thank you. So hopefully most of you are aware that Blue Zones Project Monterey County began in October of 2018 with a focus being launched in Salinas, specifically January of 2019. And the intention was always to be a county-wide application of a program. But we were very excited in February of 2020, just before the pandemic came into play. We had the opportunity to facilitate a site assessment, which was inclusive of all of Monterey County. So we did some specific work over on the peninsula, and then we included the larger part of the county with a focus in South County to really see what are the strengths, opportunity, and challenges of the county overall, and how can we align those efforts that are currently taking place to really establish an environment of sustainable well-being within Monterey County. So we were very excited in late October when the sponsors, Taylor Farms, Salinas Valley Memorial Healthcare System, and Montage Health, elected to do both a county-wide application and then some specific work over on the peninsulas as well. So we started the arduous task of hiring the additional team members to get everything set up into play. And what we're doing now is what we refer to as the discovery process, where we engage key community stakeholders to really get a better understanding of what those opportunities are, in this case on a county-wide level, and then what types of efforts are already taking place so we can find some alignment and then elevate those processes that are already in place. So you have the A team on this call today. I'll have Kendra go ahead and introduce them, but we're really excited and appreciate the opportunity to work with you. So thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Yes, Blue Zones works in 3 policy areas, one being food systems or food environment, one being tobacco, and then of course built environment. And in all of our policy work, we're so fortunate to have subject matter experts at the national and really international level that help us through this process and help us not only get to know the communities, but identify what are those areas that our local project can support and advocate for, and what are those other areas that we could help lift up or help support in other ways. So I'm really pleased that joining us on the call, we have Erica Graves is with Share Care, and she is the policy lead for all of the communities and is a wonderful support for all the local communities around the US. And then as our 2 policy experts, we have Danielle Schaffner and of course Dan Burden, who both have been working in the built environment, traffic, transportation efforts, open space parks, accessibility, and everything. So I think with that, Dan and Danny, I will turn it over to you for the presentation.
And I am experiencing high winds. So if I get kicked off, Danny's just gonna pick up on the mid-sentence and take it from there. We're ready. Okay, let me move to the share screen. Hold on a second. This guy here. And you should be able to see my main deck. Is that correct? Yeah.
Hey, Dan, I might just recommend you turn your video off if people are okay with that, just so that we maybe curb any chance of you getting kicked off.
Okay.
okay.
Let's see. How do I do that? That choice has left me. Yeah. Well,
There you go.
let me dive right into the presentation and share that it's really an exciting time we're in. And with Measure X moving forward, we can take streets like the one you see pictured here and transform it to what it has always wanted to be. A street that honors the local land uses, all ages, all abilities. This is a very unique time period that we're in. My career spanned when everyone would fight doing anything for people, especially if it got in the way of cars in any way. But now people are realizing towns are really meant to be for people. And likewise, Monterey County is very well positioned to do this work. You've got some of the best hired, best trained staff of anywhere in the nation. And I've worked in all 50 states, so I think I can say that. So in today's presentation, I really want to get into why walkability and active transportation are important, and then round that out a little bit of how different it is to build for people as opposed to only for cars, and how this will lead to healthy people and healthy communities, build an economic base, and then point out that this is a dual process. You have to be doing the right things in land use. So what you do with Measure X is going to be very closely tied into what you're trying to achieve in each of your communities. I'll get into safety a little bit and then close with case studies. So with that, I'm going to ask a question of folks here. How many of you, thinking back to when you were 8 years old, how far could you travel? And just come up with a number. Was it a block? Was it a mile? Was it 6 miles? And that is without an adult present. It's just you, a sibling, friend, or whatever. How far could you travel at age 8? And I asked that question for an important reason. If you follow this storyboard, the great-grandfather in 1919 at 8 was allowed to walk 6 miles to go fishing. That was fairly common back then. If you jump all the way up near the top to the sun, Ed, now 8, is only allowed to walk to the end of his own street, 300 yards. And a lot of things have changed, but we've given up the freedom or the opportunity for children to go places and to do things, and we're trying to get that back. I love this little cartoon by one of my friends, Ian Lockwood, where the dad's trying to figure out some magical device that would allow people to have all the mobility they need, and the kids have figured it out. They're gonna just jump on the bikes and ride to the park. But let's set the stage for this discussion. The image you see here, the sign says to walk, but nobody is walking. There are sidewalks and there are even bike lanes, but the whole system was set up to fail anything other than driving. This is the final approach to the high school in Maui. And so anyone who joins this queue at this time of day can end up sitting there for 20 minutes, because when you only focus on one thing to move, you will fail that one thing to move. So we know this nationwide. Cities of almost any size suffer a very similar destination or condition. So I spent my entire career helping communities transform from being car-centric. And when I say that, I mean solo car-centric to people-centric, where we're now focused on downtowns, on neighborhoods, on parks and places. So that's essentially where we're trying to get to with Blue Zones, with the efforts in the transportation arena. But I also want to say that you've got very likely the best partner you could have in the entire nation. What Caltrans has woken up and is starting to do is to stop trying to build their way out of congestion, which they've now proven you can't, and come up with all kinds of measures, including the energy behind Measure X, to be able to give choices so that people still have mobility and we can start to design our cities with that end goal in mind. In fact, the new Secretary of Transportation for Caltrans is probably the best person the state could have hired. Toke is his name. He came from Tennessee. He's just an amazing gentleman who's totally focused on the broad goals your communities are seeking. There are many benefits to designing streets for people. I won't go through the whole list, but I think the whole point is when we think about what makes a person healthy, a community healthy, that's what happens when we start to design our streets for people, and it's just the most amazing thing. So we won't get into all these areas, but I wanted to show you how broad the pathway is to health, and but transportation's at the very core, and active transportation is the engine that's going to make all forms of transportation work again. And I'll use a couple examples. This is a town that gets a lot of hurricanes. It's Gulf Shores. It's in Alabama. When I was there, they said, Dan, we're going to widen this road because of hurricanes. People wait till last minute, then they need to get to safety, and they can't because this road's not wide enough. So I said, okay, let me show you what that's going to look like. So I did this little photomorph, and they saw it and they said, no, that's not what we want. We want a village. I said, I thought so. So let me show you how you can move the same amount of traffic with some new tools. And so I built this for them to show that you can move 50% more traffic equal to 5 lanes if you just fix your intersections. This is a roundabout, and Monterey County is working on that in a number of areas. But it's more complex than that. And we can't just blame the car or the person who jumps in a car all alone as the problem we have to solve. So let's just say that you or your child would like to go somewhere and they have to pass through this. You can see there's some things missing. So we'll add in the sidewalks and the crosswalks, but that won't change a darn thing. It looks nicer, and for those who are forced to walk or bike, they can do it safer. But then we have to create place, a reason to even go to a location. But even that's not enough. So we add another layer. We put the eyes on the street. And until we get our building codes correct and we make people aware that they're being watched over, then we're able to finally get people to enjoy walking and to use the opportunities. This is a small town in the Midwest, West Lafayette, Indiana, home of Purdue. And I saw what they were facing here. And I said, I'm going to do an overlay to show you what you could do here. So I came all the way down to your territory and essentially did an overlay of Santa Cruz, Pacific Avenue, those of you know the territory, and took out the lanes they did not need and widened the sidewalks, greened it up. But truly all I did was came and stole one of the scenes that you guys in your region at least have already perfected. I also like to say, if you're looking for a simple litmus test, every time you're looking to spend a category of money, ask yourself that change, is it going to reward the short trip or the long trip? Is it going to give reason for people to be able to own their own neighborhood, their own livability and quality of life? And so now let's get to the health side. Building for healthy people also builds healthy communities, as it turns out. This is our founder, Dan Buettner, who has written the third most read article in the whole history of National Geographic on health and longevity. And he's since worked on a number of other projects for National Geographic. I think he's up to 6 or even 7 projects he's finished for them. He's a fellow, one of the most respected people in the whole world that works for them. What Dan did was follow the history of where people live the longest, the healthiest lives. This was already known, but nobody had really intensely studied it. So what Dan did is assembled the teams. They went in and with great exploration, they said, there are some principles here in common. So that's what Blue Zones is all about. How do we take each one of these, whatever we want to call them, I'll call them buckets, 9 different elements, and be able to intervene in a person's lifestyle, their diet, their ability to get out and be interactive. And so today we're only really looking at the built environment, but it's a big part of the 9. The science behind this is that the built environment and the behaviors that we can do as a result of the proper environment are the 70% of how long we live and how well we live. Genetics is only controlling 20%, but we have mastery or control over all of the other things. Our first town in Blue Zones, this is about 12 years ago, might be 13 now, Albert Lee, Minnesota, that was chosen to be a town to apply these principles and see if we could have an impact on the health outcomes that people seek. When we got there, they already had money and they're going to widen their main street downtown. Once I realized they had the money, I said, no, we're going to make it more walkable. And so we took lanes out and we made it a much better place. But then they got from, I think it was maybe 50% of the businesses were still in business, clear up to where there was no more land. So we looked at the next project for them, looking forward on this, and crafted a vision because they had the steering committee, the people together to override what the Minnesota DOT wanted to do, which is just to keep the road the same. They were able to put this on the ground. I think 76% reduction in crashes almost immediately sustained. And obviously more walkable, more business friendly, ability to drop in town buildings, mixed use, as you see there. The Gallup is hired by Blue Zones to measure the outcomes, and this was the outcome for Albert Lee, the first of all of our communities. We're over 50 now, and many more coming. Another one of our towns, Muscatine, which is on the Mississippi River. This is called Mississippi Drive. You can see there are hardly any cars. They had built another road elsewhere that was more direct, and so that left the whole downtown just kind of waiting for someone to come in and help. And again, because they had a strong committee together, the Blue Zones Committee, they could get consensus, and they were able to get the grants and transform that particular street into what you see here. They pretty well completed this street. They have many other projects they're doing. We're told anywhere from 425 million has now been invested since Blue Zones did its very first work there. It's very important that I address the economics of walkability. It comes right down to this, where everybody's trying to figure out how they can cut back on their daily cost of living or annual. Walking is the clear winner. So if you put in $1 for whatever it takes to walk, society only has to put in a penny. For biking, it's not bad. You put in the buck and society only has to pay 8 cents. For transit, still a pretty good deal. For the $1 you put in, society has to pick up $1.50. But if you drive alone, society has to pick up all the rest to keep you in motion, and that turns out to be $9.20 for the buck that you put in. These are very well documented. We can take a look at this regionally. On the left is Portland. And from 1980 to 1990, they focused on transit, walkability, biking. They built their city for people. And as a result, their property taxes were dropped during that period, 29%. Pollution went down, neighborhood quality went up. Now, in that same 10-year period, Atlanta chose the sprawl pattern. And so they had to increase their taxes. And they worsened their air, and the quality of their neighborhoods went down during that 10-year period. So what are some of the tools that help us get there? One of the tools I like best is to go back to the way we originally laid out our town centers. It's called traditional, well-connected streets, short blocks. And so if you compare Seattle on the left with Bellevue, their neighbor, where they went toward the sprawl pattern, if you have a house in Seattle, your city has to pay for your fire protection $159 a year because your streets are well connected. But over in Bellevue, the same service costs you $740 per year. So you think about that. Well, that's just fire service. And you add in police protection and sewers and all the utilities and so on, and you begin to see why the traditional pattern, the ways many of our core towns were laid out, is a clear economic advantage. But even a bigger factor is what we call the yield per acre. Joe Minikazi, who works with us, runs his own organization, has done the economic analysis, and wherever town he goes to, he gets all the data together and confirms this. If you build for sprawl, strip style, you're only going to get a yield per acre let's just make up a number. Let's say $100 per acre. But if you go to downtowns, mixed use, the more compact form, it goes up 800%. That's huge for cities that are trying to pencil things out and stay within reasonable budgets. But there's another cool thing. if we can get people to agree on the direction they want to go, we work on public engagement, and that's an engine we really power up with communities. Then you can get the project on the ground much sooner. And this particular town was told that they would take 10 years to get their project, but because of the public engagement process we followed, they had the bulldozers moving in 300 days. So imagine 10 years of the increased cost in construction being performed in such a remarkably short period of time. But now let's go to some California cities. Chico, California. And I want to say it's one of my favorite towns in California as a university town. This is a map of where we were working. Nord Avenue, which you can see in the middle, is paralleled by railroad tracks. Let's strip away the map part. You can see now what we call the X-ray. Nord Avenue is there. And I think you can see because the railroad denies the ability to have that many connections, all the traffic has to enter in just a few remote locations. Let's go down now to this particular intersection. We call this a conjunction and a confluence. And notice it's staggered. That one intersection, because of its problems, is causing backups for 6 hours a day. And the backups can be for like an hour once you hit the queue. So we went in and said, okay, we can solve this problem, but we can't do it by widening the road, Nord Avenue. In fact, it would have cost over $300 million to widen the road, and it would have taken years to acquire the land. So here's what we proposed. You're building new homes. As you do it, put in each segment of road along the way, so you now have a parallel road. The parallel road is going to be built for very quiet, efficient movement of traffic, likely include trails, obviously walking, and a few other little very important connections. I hope this shows up, but if it does, can you guys see my arrow? Is it showing up? Okay, that conjunction means that all these people through all this area, that one link keeps people off of having to go to Nord Avenue. So I think you can see the power of building the system. Now let's go to that actual confluence, and you can see the staggered area. So we took this area in particular and mapped out the missing streets, and then we showed them what they could do. And in this case, because now there are a number of routes of choice, we knocked 6 hours of congested road down to less than 20 minutes a day. That's really a powerful way of doing it. Looking at the intersections, in this case, a couple little missing links, and being able to make that all come together. Now let me introduce another Blue Zones concept. We call it the life radius. It's essentially that radius from your home where you do, let's say 80% of the things you need. It may or may not include your employment, but it includes everything else. The more compact you can make your life radius, the more walking you're going to do, the more biking you're going to do. So let's just say if this is your quarter mile radius of where you live. If you only have these streets, you're not going to be able to walk much. All the streets are going to be overpowered with traffic. But if your town code calls for a certain block pattern, what we like to say, the perimeter of the block is now down to a certain number, you're going to be able to build your system at the same price, but now have more people being able to walk. But people won't walk until they're a destination. So we put parks, schools, worship centers, employment centers, all within a walking scale. Now we take that, and today a new term's been created. We call it the 15-minute city. Ideally, it'd be the 15-minute walk city, but it could also be the 15-minute bike city. And by doing this, putting the most important growth in the downtown or near the downtown, then we can get more people able to walk and to bike. 30 years ago, I was invited to come in and be part of a team to reimagine Fort Pierce, Florida. And you can see they already had great street patterns, the very kind of pattern we're talking about. You can tell this was a long time ago because of the old paddle wheeler, right? So I'm going to circle a building, and that building is there today, and show what the town became because they did not have a vision. They just built for the car. This is what they ended up with. But after our charrette, our planning event, they went to work, and today, Fort Pierce looks like this. Now, they couldn't have done it if they didn't have that original bone structure of streets, right? Now let's talk about the importance of where we locate things. I was once working in a town that had a vision for a new town hall out of town. And obviously that would not be very fair or friendly to people who didn't own a car. Look where they had already put people for multifamily, people with disabilities, seniors, dislocated from the heart of their community. So where we put things matters a lot. And if all we want to do is grow our dependency on more expenses and transportation, then we put things where they don't belong. It's important the older we get to build friendship circles, to have others that relate to us. And again, if we're very careful about building our town where people can live where they'd like to, then they can live out a very high quality of life. One of my favorite towns in North Carolina is Davidson. They passed a code requiring any new commercial building has to have mixed use. And by doing that, again, they're getting offices or residential in where it's needed. Another new term, it's only been around for maybe 10 years, is what we're referring to as missing middle housing. So the housing that's all single family, you can pretty well pick it out. It's the other housing that we're missing. And so there's a whole new energy going into making sure we build the kinds of housing stock that everybody needs and not just keep putting all our funds into single family residential. Danny, I'm going to ask you to speak to the essential workers and the equity so we can hear Danny's voice.
Sure, Dan, I'm happy to. So I think as we experience and we see really the disparities that have been magnified throughout the pandemic, one of the aspects that, Dan and I and the local team do speak to is, just this idea that those that really are critical and essential need to be elevated in the ways that we design those transportation systems, right? And that really does get to that idea of what's equal and what's equitable. So I think even going to that next slide, Dan, I think when we think about providing the same thing for everyone, that's not really what the point of creating this connection between land use and transportation in ways that really meet the needs of all communities. That's not really the point. It's really to make sure that those opportunities, those options, those community design pieces are there in ways that allow that access for everyone.
Fantastic. Thanks, Danny.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about safety. America is probably on a grand scale the least safe place to drive, to walk, or to bike. And that's a very sad statement about what we've built. But studies have been conducted for the nation in California. We take the communities you see outlined here. Santa Cruz would be the closest one to you. These were all studied, and I think you can see here where the safe cities are. And as we look at the design of these cities, we realize they're following the traditional pattern versus the sprawl pattern. If you look at a place like West Sacramento, they really have not been building to the traditional form. They're building what's referred to as the conventional form. And when we talk about that, we're talking about the street network. So the more dispersed and disconnected your streets, the more danger you introduce to your system. And what they were able to prove, beyond any shadow of a doubt, it was a very robust study, is that the more dense you make your pattern of streets, that is, the closer your streets are to one another, each intersection, like 300, 400, 500, 600 foot blocks, then you're going to get lower crashes. And but you're going to get more walking, and you're going to get more bicycling. And so all the other benefits we pointed out earlier were really well documented in this study. So again, think of the pattern of your streets in order to move forward. I now want to get into another new term.
Dan, if I could interrupt, we've
Please.
got about 5 more minutes left for this item, and we haven't had a chance to ask questions. So is it possible to?
We can stop anywhere you'd like.
Why don't you take a couple more minutes, give us the main points you'd like to leave with us, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So the term is called target speed. Instead of just posting the speed based on what 85% of people are doing, based on the land uses, what should the speed be? This street above is one we transformed into the street below. This is Lancaster, California. Again, you see this as the before and then the after. So the whole concept in transportation is, do we want to reward speed and efficiency of movement, or do we now want to focus on building for people and get the speeds down to where they're much safer? This is a good example. We go back to Nord Avenue, Chico, and assuming that most motorists driving through here are going to go pretty fast, if we introduce this measure, then this measure, and this, and one of the more powerful, this one, now the engineer, the planner have done all they can to bring the speeds down, and then the proper development. And once you get to this point, your target speed, let's say all along is for 20, almost guaranteed the speeds will be right at 19 or 20 miles an hour. We combine tools. Bike lanes, in this case, are great for bicyclists, but they're also really beneficial to the pedestrian. And I'll close out with this image of a street we redesigned, this one in Sacramento, to be friendly for walking to school, biking to school, bringing the speeds down. The cool thing is, if we make a street safe for walking and biking, the motorist safety increases as well. So with that, yes, let me figure out how to get out of the program.
Dan, do you want to skip down to the Measure X Connect slide, as that might actually set us up for a nice few minutes of discussion?
Yep. Go back again. Am I still on the screen?
Perfect.
Yep. Yeah. So I hope this was helpful in helping set the stage for what your opportunities are as you move forward with Measure X. Again, amazing times that we're in, that we can now do things that we couldn't have done 10 years ago. So, discussion?
Hey, Victoria.
Hi, thanks, Dan. That was wonderful. I love these photomorphs.
Aren't they
They're
great?
fantastic. I don't know how many people who are in our group today were part of the, it's now been half a decade to a full decade almost of a couple symposiums we ran for this type of topic through the Cal State Monterey Bay campus.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of your colleagues, Dan, there. It was a wonderful sort of cross section of this type of thinking that we brought to the peninsula. And I think it helped a lot of people. It was back, however, when, and you put it correctly when you said that Caltrans has recently kind of come around. It was back when Caltrans wouldn't fund anything like anything you're saying. It was very difficult. And I was sitting on the TAMC board at the time and also on the FORA board. And we were really struggling to get the funding. So that is changing, and that is good. I have two questions for you. One is the thing that's psychological that I have found over the years that is difficult to change. And you are obviously, your presentations like it help. But there are those of us in this community, which is a beautiful sort of bucolic community, that talk about a value they call sometimes privacy. And the privacy contingent are folks who think that the what you call conventional planning, as opposed to traditional planning, is going to get them more safety, more privacy, more space, in some ways more amenities. Now, you're talking about a different type of amenities that cannot be gotten by that. But one of my questions was, what is the best argument? What we did when we presented these new ideas at the time to our community is we had a pluralistic, non-judgmental attitude about it. We said, listen, this is just another thing we can do to improve our area. Let's not argue about the poor land use that you call conventional. But in the end, if you want to have these higher health outcomes and these lower costs, et cetera, you actually have to convert more conventional to traditional. And I wonder what the arguments are for folks who just are in love with the conventional. So that's one thing. And then just as a side point, what supporting agencies and organizations do you find, and funding sources do you find support this work? But I think the first question is a little more unusual. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So what I've come to realize is that we're conflicted, right? Our values are, we want family, we want social engagement, we want to honor the land, whatever. Well, it turns out that that's in opposition to pushing privacy and going anywhere we want, any way we want, or with our cars. That what we really need to do is focus on what are the community values the people hold, what binds us together as a people, and how do we build some of the built environment that's needed to be more equitable, to be honoring those who don't have the ability to have the funds to go out and live in some level of isolation. So it's a matter of, let's look out for those who deserve to have the health, the resources, because we do say that's what we value. Let's just work toward that. And maybe only 10 or 15% of our land will transform with the traditional values. The conventional is going to be out there for a long time. Yeah. And your other question related to funding, is that right?
Well, organizational structures, what are the best? TAMC's always been fantastic. I love TAMC. I think they've always been more enlightened than their funding sources have reflected, but now it's kind of coming together better. But, you know, in terms of cross-jurisdictional agencies and organizations, how do you get this done quickly? Because we have been talking about it for many, many years now. So I have a feeling part of it has to do just with the logistics of getting momentum across the board.
Well, that's where I feel Blue Zones has figured out over the years how to get things rolling, right? What kind of committee structure, what kind of leadership needs to evolve and develop over time in order to achieve the dreams, the visions that people have. So once we dive into the structure of Blue Zones, there's no magic in it. It's just really great common sense about how you're able to get people to collaborate, to work together, to do a model project, to do a change in code that makes all the sense in the world. So
is TAMC, sorry, I just quick follow up. Is TAMC the kind of main type of organization you would propose working with in a county like Monterey? Okay.
Yeah, I'm in love with TAMC. Okay. Hope you feel that at least. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. Janet.
I'm
active in an organization that advocates for high density development throughout the county. My question relates to how active are you in terms of the land use process where many of these decisions or most of these decisions are being made?
I would say very active. We, with the Blue Zones model, we have what we refer to as policy bundles. One is just land use, one is just transportation, another one is an ingredient of many things, which include parks and schools and so on. So on the land use side, we really help people understand what density or compact land form, locational efficiency, all the things we've been talking about here, how they relate to one another. And if you're going to have mixed use, you've got to have a certain threshold of people or the business can't stay in business. You have everything works together, and we try to bring all those together and have the community understand that where they want to go, where they're already heading, all we do is act as an accelerant to help people get there sooner, more completely, and more collaboratively. Hope that answered the question.
No, it doesn't. Do you actively participate at the decision-making process in terms of advocates supporting projects that have higher density?
We do, and again, it's all based on where the community is trying to get to. We help inform people about what their choices are, and let the voters make the decision, but to be informed about it, and not to be making decisions just based on some kind of a fear that having neighbors closer to them is, for example, with the pandemic, there are a lot of questions about, are people too close together? Turns out, no, they're not, but some building types are not the right types of buildings we should be building in the future, right?
You know, and Dan, this,
go ahead, Kendra.
This is Kendra. And, you know, so we've been working in Salinas for a couple of years. And so one of the things that we're supporting them on regarding land use is supporting their efforts around ADUs, you know, whether it be updating ordinances, policy, education for the community, making ADUs more accessible as an option, things like that. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Okay, Danny, did you want to add? And then I'm going to move us on to the rest of our agenda here shortly. Is there anything else to add, Danny?
I was just to Kendra's point, I was just going to say too, you know, we really do, we support communities, not just in that advocacy, but in that expertise. So to the ADU example, right, if that's something that the community's value brings up the list, then we say, hey, you know, we can advocate with our great community leads like Kendra, Dan, and myself and others on our team can also bring that expertise in what needs to go into that policy and capacity build out too. So I just wanted to add that frame.
Okay, good, thank you. And I would just add, as far as, I haven't heard you talk much until Janet brought it up about density. So at least in the city of Monterey, there are projects being proposed and in the works for increasing density, right? And really that makes it possible to have a walkable workforce housing, walkable, bikeable. I would say there's some great opportunities coming up, and it's difficult for people to think about density on the peninsula and think about moving from 3 stories to 4 stories to 5 stories. Oh my gosh. So we could use as much advocacy help as we can. My interest is in that housing being made affordable, and to the fact that it's also walkable is just another reason to do it. So another important reason to do it. So there's some interesting opportunities coming up on the peninsula with that regard. Any other burning questions? And if not, I'm going to move us on. So we have 2 more presentations.
I just want to thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Teresa and TAMC. We started working with TAMC when we kicked off the project, before we officially kicked off the project in Salinas, and it has been such a pleasure. I just love the team, and it's been a pleasure to be here this afternoon.
Good, and thank you for all you're doing. And there's a lot of, I think, direct connection between the principles and ideals you're promoting and what TAMC's already got in the hopper and what the Measure X pedestrian programs, biking programs are in motion doing. So I expect we'll see a lot more of this vision that you're presenting come to reality.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for your presentation. And
Thank
keep up the good
you.
work.
Thanks.
All right, I'll move us on. Next, we have a presentation from the City of Salinas. And who will be doing that, Teresa?
David Jacobs is here. And David, I just wanted to say to this whole committee, I want to thank David because he presented to you all, I think it was back in 2018 maybe, and he literally was on the job, brand new to our community, a matter of what, handful of days. And so he sort of stepped into the fire and came and presented to this group, very new to our community. And so he's back. And David, I just want to say thank you. And I'll let you go ahead and do your presentation. He's going to be talking about the Salinas projects, what they're doing with their Measure X dollars. So with that, David, please.
Oh, good afternoon, members of the committee. I am going to try to share my screen. Don't know how good I'm going to do this at, but all right. So hopefully you can see my screen. This is a short presentation on where the city has gone with our Measure X money, what type of projects that we have going on. Currently, projects that we have going on, we have traffic calming improvements. That traffic calming is a major concern with people in Salinas. We have a long list, and we actually have funded this over 3 years. This year we didn't fund it because we have a lot of different projects going on. We have the Main Street project right now that is about, I'd say 70% done. We're in the 300 block now, removing the sidewalks and pouring new sidewalks. We have the Alisal Complete Street project, which is about 90% done. We went from a 4-lane road to a 3-lane road, to 1 lane in each direction with a turn lane down the middle. We replaced all the traffic signals through there, and we're right now interlinking those signals and working on the timing so we can turn them all on. We did street maintenance equipment replacement. We bought a new paving machine and a new grinding machine that's actually helped our maintenance people do quite a bit more pavement maintenance throughout the city. We have done annual street rehabs. We did a big slurry seal project 2 years ago. We have a big chip seal project on the books right now that we're hoping to get out to bid in the next month or so. We've been doing sidewalk repairs throughout the city. We even have the Alvin Safe Routes to School project. That's about 50% done right now. That's including 2 traffic signals and making Alvin Street a complete street where we're going from 4 lanes down to 1 lane in each direction with a turn lane down the middle. And then we also have a traffic signal at Alvin and Linwood. That's actually part of the Alvin Safe Routes to School project. And also the Alisal Complete Street project and the Alvin Safe Routes to School project. We've actually used Measure X money to be a funding mechanism for federal and state money. So we're bringing federal and state money into the city and using Measure X as a matching mechanism. This is a picture here is of the new grinding machine on the left, and thought I replaced. Actually, I think we should have a paving machine on the left and the milling machine on the right, but I must have picked up the wrong presentation, and I actually have a picture of both the milling machine in both places. So. But this milling machine actually lets our crews get out there and mill down the street, taking out the potholes and the cracked pavement. And then the new paving box will come back and actually pave the road. We did quite a bit of work on Alvin Street in preparation for the Safe Routes to School project. So if you actually drive down Alvin Street right now, you'll see a lot of the work that they've done. They're actually moving over to Barden Road and doing some preparation for the Barden Road Safe Routes to School that's coming online shortly. The Main Street project right now is taking a one-way street and making it a two-way street, widening the sidewalks, putting in traffic signals that actually are more pedestrian friendly. What happens with these traffic signals is they'll do an all-way stop when a pedestrian wants to cross, so the pedestrian can cross in any direction. So all the cars are stopped at one time, and preference is given to pedestrians. We're actually improving the conditions of the roadway. The road condition was, I believe, a 40, and oh, you know what? I didn't. Sorry about that. Didn't have that in the right place. So we're going, paving condition was a 43, which is a poor condition of the roadway. And we're repaving it and bringing that up to 100. We're increasing the mobility and access for folks to the businesses. We're improving traffic safety by narrowing the lanes of the road and giving preference to pedestrians. And again, it helps the walking and biking of Main Street by doing these improvements. This is a picture of traffic calming that we've done. This is a picture of the, geez, this is the wrong one too. Sorry. This is some speed humps that we've put down recently, help slow down vehicles. And then we also have put traffic circles in a couple locations to try to help calm the traffic and slow people down. And usually this is in areas where we have long straightaways on the roadways. And so we install this stuff, and it takes a lot of community input to get something done. And we don't automatically go to the speed humps. We go to traffic circles and speed humps, and then also striping and narrowing the lanes. So it depends on what the traffic is doing and how we move forward with traffic calming. Oh, wow. Sorry. I actually pulled up the very wrong one here. Here I have some sidewalk improvements. I have pictures of a new curb ramp that we put in, and curb and gutter and sidewalk that we've placed. And I apologize for getting the wrong presentation, but I did have pictures of that. And then one of the more exciting projects that we have going on that the community really wanted is the Laurel Street Sidewalk project, where we're going to be constructing a sidewalk from Sanborn all the way down to Constitution. And this will improve the pedestrian access to the hospital and to the new soccer fields. We're also going to do some trail improvements in Carr Lake by putting some lighting out there. We did award this project, and the construction is expected to start in March. And then we have some upcoming projects coming on. The Barden Road Safe Routes to School project. That's 2 roundabouts that we're putting in by Barden School. It is, again, a match money for federal and state money coming in for Safe Routes to School. We have the Baranda Congestion Relief Project. That's Barden Road all along to help the future growth area. Basically, there's a lot of congestion up there, but Baranda is a roundabout corridor. So we're installing roundabouts at most of the intersections to help control the flow of traffic and reduce the speed of traffic in that way. We have ongoing street trimming, street tree trimming. We are doing a arterial and collector chip seal project this coming summer. We have a San Juan grade pavement rehab project, also Work Street pavement rehab, and we're looking at replacing our crack filling machine. Again, the crack filling is a really inexpensive way to do pavement maintenance and maintain your pavement conditions moving forward. If you don't fill those cracks, water gets into the sub base, and then you get your failing of your asphalt very quickly. So we want to replace our crack filling machine so we're more efficient at crack filling moving forward. So that is my presentation. Again, I apologize for not having the proper pictures up there, but I am open for any questions.
All right. That was terrific, David. Thank you. I can tell you're much more confident and comfortable in your job now than when we first met you. Especially now that you got new machines. That's great. Even though your pictures were not what you expected, that was helpful to see and understand the kind of investments you made, and particularly, yeah, dealing with the short-term problems before they become long-term problems. Any questions, comments, reactions? Paula? And if you can use the hand function, that works best for me. Go ahead, Paula.
Okay, David, thanks for your presentation. I have one quick question. Are these projects that you've outlined primarily standalone projects, or are they a single phase of multi-phase projects?
Most of them are standalone projects. The one exception is the Barden Road congestion relief project. That is a multi-year, multi-phase project, and it's going to move forward as funding becomes available.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Daniel?
I had a question. Some of the rehabilitation streets like Work Street have high business congestion there. Have you informed any of the businesses, or are you going to be informing any of the businesses of this construction? I'm specifically thinking about the Hampton Inn and Suites and the East of Eden right there that are always circulating business.
Daniel, your voice faded out a little bit. Did you get the full question, David?
No, I did not. This first part of this question was really faded.
Just make sure your voice is in contact with your microphone.
Is that
Go
better?
ahead. Yes.
Okay. I was just wondering if you guys are going to be informing any of the businesses on Work Street about the rehabilitation that's going to be happening.
Yeah, we do a public outreach on any project that we do to let folks know that we're coming, to get their input on terms of exactly what we're doing. Some projects get delayed because of the outreach we do. Right now, Work Street is part of another project, and I'm not sure the exact timing. We actually put that in as part of the San Juan grade project because we think we're going to have some extra money to go down and do Work Street. So as we get closer to finishing the plans on that, then we'll do some outreach to the businesses.
Okay, Keith, you had a question.
David, what are you doing with your grindings?
We actually are delivering those to the granite rock, and they recycle them and put them into the asphalt.
Is that the right answer, Keith? All right.
It is.
Other questions, comments, or reactions for David? All right, oh wait, there is one more. Chris Beretta, where are you? Go ahead.
Hello, David. It's already been 2 years, right?
It's almost 3 years now.
Wow. So congratulations and thank you for your report. I have a couple questions about the Old Town project. So how much of Measure X monies was used for that project?
The Measure X money is around 10.5 million for the project. And that includes the construction, project oversight, and testing and evaluating.
Right, and that 10.5, is that just for Old Town, or does that branch off to all the work that's being done on LSL and
that is only for the Old Town project. The LSL is a different funding mechanism. It has Measure X in it, but it also has Safe Routes to School money in it.
I see. And about how much longer do you think the project is going to take to complete it?
They're looking at April being completed.
April complete?
Yeah.
Okay. And everyone's always asking me, are the trees going to be replaced?
Yes. Yeah, we're waiting for the trees to be delivered right now. We're looking, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll start seeing the new trees being planted.
Okay. And so all the light pole replacements, that wasn't Measure X, or?
The light poles?
Yes.
Yeah, the light poles were actually taken down and refurbed and then put back up, and that was Measure X money.
Oh,
The
okay.
only thing that's not Measure X money on the downtown project is the archway. That is actually funded by general fund and by the downtown Rotarians.
Oh, the Rotarians. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Just the downtown Rotary or all the Rotaries?
I believe it's just the downtown Rotary.
Downtown. Okay. And I also noticed that on Alisal, it's only a 2-laner towards South Salinas. Is it going to continue to go to a 2-lane all the way through the east side?
Yeah, that's our plan. As money comes available, we do plan on continuing that complete street.
Okay. And let's see. And then the work on Barden is Barden going to get completely redone or just partly, or?
Just partly. Actually, I'd have to bring up a map. Let me have to give a. Yes, so the roundabout goes in at Alisal and Barden, and we are doing a over a slurry on Barden Road all the way down to Williams.
I see. And would you happen to know how much money Salinas receives yearly for Measure X now?
It's around 5 or 6 million, and we have about 2 or 3 million going toward the repayment of the bonds, and then we have another 1.5 to 2 million for projects on an annual basis.
I see. And my last question, the sidewalk repairs. Are there any sidewalk repairs scheduled for Santa Rita area or in East Salinas or any of those other neighborhoods?
I would have to get back to you in terms of which projects we have ongoing. I know we do fund our concrete crew with Measure X who actually do concrete pairs on a daily basis. And that's where the 15-year wait is. If you call in and want a sidewalk replaced, you put on a list and that crew goes out there and replaces them. But again, we have a long backlog of those. But we do have projects that come up where we do a bigger area, mostly for ADA compliance. We get an area that says, oh, I can't get to such and such a place. I'm in a wheelchair. We go out and evaluate it. And if it's necessary, we go out and do a big replacement. We just recently did a replacement on John Street that just completed recently. But I don't know the actual list of sidewalks that we've done or have planned in the near future.
Would you mind getting me a list of completed and on the schedule? Because when I was walking the city for, during the campaign, I did see a lot of sidewalks that need to be repaired. Yes. And a lot of the residents were really upset and even to the point where they took it upon themselves to cut down their own tree and replace their own sidewalks.
Yeah, we estimate we have $20 million in sidewalk repairs that need to be done citywide. And we do have like I said, we have a 50-50 program that people can take advantage of, that call in and pay 50% of it and it gets done right away. But if they want it done by our crews, it's a 15-year wait.
All right. Now you have my contact info, right?
What's that?
You have my contact info for, so I can get
I'll just send it to Tamsi and they'll distribute it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome.
All right, last question from Tom Rowley, and then we have one more report and hoping to finish our meeting at 3:30.
Hi, Chair Barbara. A question for City Councilman and Public Works Director. City of Monterey has a very effective program that's been around for a long time called Neighborhood Community and Improvement Program, and was formerly NIP, Neighbor Improvement Program. But anyway, where a percentage of the room tax, TOT, goes in and is separately used for community-wide and neighborhood projects and their There's representatives from all the different various neighborhoods that are organized, participate. Now it's used to nominate from the neighborhood associations, but it's actually now from the area of the city. And when I think that when we originally proposed a citizens group back for the sales tax, which took us 5 tries to get through, we missed 30 years of having projects like a lot of these projects funded from the self-help sales tax. And I just wonder, you know, the biggest city, Salinas, have you ever considered something similar? Maybe not on the scale of Monterey, because Monterey has, you know, granted a lot of tourist rooms, but some kind of kitty that could be used for putting up matching funds, which Monterey has used quite a bit for getting, making a few dollars go a long way. And that's happened repeatedly in Monterey with grants, transportation grants, in part because some of the NIP funds were used for grants. So has this ever been considered in Salinas?
Not to my knowledge, but it's something that we could put forward if the council is interested. We do use the TOT tax as basically general fund money. So if we take anything from the TOT, it takes away from our general fund.
Okay. Any other burning questions, comments for David? All right, seeing none. Thank you again, David.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. We'll look forward to your next report down the road.
Okay.
All right. Okay, well, let's move on to our last item on the agenda, and that is our audit subcommittee report, receiving of the reports from the 12 jurisdictions and how they've spent their funds. And Mike Zeller is going to lead us in that presentation.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Zeller. I'm a principal planner with the Transportation Agency, and I have just a brief presentation to provide the committee an update on the Measure X audit reports for the past fiscal year 1920. These reports were due on December 31st of last year, and happy to report that all of the jurisdictions this year submitted their reports by the deadline. So we've had marked improvement in submittals and compliance by the jurisdictions this year. So as Measure X is going along, the jurisdictions are getting much better at compiling and submitting their reports with requested information. And I just wanted to start the presentation with a few photos that we received from Measure X funded projects. This is also always a fun part of reviewing the annual reports, is seeing the work that was done. So here we have a couple photos. One is on the left is North Vanderhurst Street in King City. On the right there, we have a full depth reclamation of the roadway of Arroyo Seco Road that was conducted by the County of Monterey. Here we have some bicycle safe grates that were installed by the City of Seaside using Measure X funds, and then also a maintenance project on Central Avenue in Pacific Grove. You can see the road that after it was completed. Here we also have a crew in the City of Monterey working on a slurry seal. And then on the right, this is a downtown complete streets project in the City of Salinas that you just heard about from Mr. Jacobs. And then here, both of these pictures are from the City of Monterey. This is the North Fremont Bicycle and Pedestrian Project with the bike and ped facility down the median of the roadway. So a great project. And here we have a summary of the reports that were submitted. As I mentioned, we had marked improvement in compliance this year. The one outstanding issue is with the City of Sand City with their maintenance of effort. So they were not able to spend enough funds this past year to meet their maintenance of effort. TAMC staff has met with the city manager and their consulting engineer to discuss the issue, and also let them know that until this is resolved, that their Measure X disbursements will be on hold. So the city is looking into basically how that they can resolve this issue and get back into compliance. But until that happens, that their disbursements will be suspended. Also to Mr. Barrera's question about the amount of revenues that were received by the Salinas and the other jurisdictions, that information is in my staff report that's included in the agenda packet. It has all the funds that were received in fiscal year 1920 by the jurisdictions. And there's also a link to our website where all of the annual reports are posted if anybody would like to take a look at them. We've also had all these reports looked at by our TMC's independent auditor, and he has confirmed these results as well from his review of the audits. So with that, that's my brief presentation, and happy to take any questions.
All right, questions, comments? Tom, and then Paula.
Yeah, Tom Raleigh again. One question I asked before is we weren't sure, $20 million a year was projected Measure X sales tax revenues, and looking at the summary of the data for the first 4 years or 3 years, looks like 1 year was a bonus, 10 million plus 7 million, 5 million, but it looks like conservatively somewhere between 5 and 10 million additional. We know there's some major projects like Highway 156 that are desperately needed, are underfunded, short funded to completion. It sure would be nice if some of that money, or perhaps a large portion of it, could be set aside to finish that critical project in our regional road network. We talked about this before. I asked the question before, but the answer really was not very complete, and it was kind of tap dancing around. It's great news to see that more funds are coming in, but I think I don't know, and I haven't seen on TAMSI whether this has been discussed by TAMSI about the additional funds, but I'm sure Debbie and Todd have plans for it. So can you comment on that, Mike? I'm sorry.
Certainly, and Todd or Debbie, please jump in if you'd like to. Essentially, you're right, the revenues have been coming in higher than what we had initially anticipated when we set Measure X up. So we have been taking a conservative approach to essentially just set these funds aside for the time being. Don't know how the economy and if these additional revenues will continue in the future. What they are allowing us to do right now is to hold off on needing to do any kind of bonding or debt financing of our projects. So we're able to schedule out the projects that we have right now just on a pay-go method and keep these reserves essentially as a reserve for a rainy day if there's any issues in the future. If we do get down the road, I think the idea is that if there is a substantial reserve that's left over, we would bring this to the board to discuss how we would want to program those additional funds to projects.
I'd just like to
Tom, if I might. Oh,
go ahead, Debbie. Okay, I would just like to add that when you talk about the additional funds that are coming in over our original 20 million estimate, in that high year with an additional $10 million total, 60% of that goes to the cities and the county for their street and road maintenance and repair projects. So that's all going directly into their programs and is reflected in their annual reports. And that would leave $4 million that for the regional projects. So it's not as much money for the regional share as maybe you think. But as Mike said, we are gearing up to do some major regional projects that are in the works. The Castro Boulevard interchange at 156, Imgen Parkway that's going to start this year. And we're working with Caltrans on the 68 corridor, which is a $50 million project out of Measure X share. So that's where building up a reserve of the regional share of Measure X helps us fund those projects. And when we have a better feel for how our revenue is banked, when we're ready to go through construction, we'll know whether we need to bond, if we can do pay as we go, or if there will be additional revenue to program another regional project. So that's kind of how we're looking at it right now.
Great, thank you. Did you have to add anything, Debbie?
Well, Todd said most of it. I was just going to echo the fact that, everybody thinks that the $300 million was going to come in a year, and yet it was going to come in over, 30 years. I'm sorry, 600 million over 30 years. So basically, we're planning to deliver the project sooner, and maybe at year 15 or 20, we'll be at a point where we've delivered everything. But until everything gets built, there's not any extra money, except to the cities, which have a long list as well, and they're just building their stuff sooner.
Got it. Thank you. All right, Paula, did you have your hand up? And can you unmute yourself, Paula?
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Mike, I just wanted to double check with you. At one time earlier this year, we mentioned that some of the Salinas projects might not be in compliance with Measure X specifications, but I'm assuming that everything that was presented today is in line with Measure X specs.
That's correct. The initial submittal from the City of Salinas, they had listed a couple projects on their 5-year CIP that they were planning to spend future Measure X funds on that did not appear to be eligible. So we had requested that they revise their project list to remove those ineligible projects, and they did do that. They submitted a revised CIP. So that's what was included in the information today.
Oh, terrific. Thank you.
All right, and Kevin's got his hand up.
Yes, I believe that one of the reasons why we had 100% compliance from local governments this year on their Measure X reports is because this committee is committed to making them publicly accountable for doing it. Those tables and the reports that come out, having that go to all the people in the county, I think that everybody has realized this is one agency where you're not going to be able to slip by doing what you're supposed to do. So I think we should be all pleased that we're doing our job well, we're making a difference, we're effective, and I hope we can keep it up.
Yeah, no sloughing off here. Not going to get anything past Kevin Dayton. Or Paula. So Paula's you've got the job of chairing the committee and preparing the report. That's on its way, I presume.
Yes, we're meeting again next Tuesday, I believe.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments or reactions as it relates to the audit? No. Okay. Well, then we're at the conclusion of the items on our agenda. Are there any announcements?
I do. I just wanted to point out that Daniel Hernandez has been serving on this committee, and Daniel is relocating. So this is his last meeting. Daniel, I don't know if you want to say anything. And then I also want to acknowledge Monica Lell, who is also on this call. This is her first meeting. So Monica, welcome, and Daniel, bon voyage to you.
Pleasure working with you all.
All right. Well, best wishes to you wherever you're heading. I'm sure you'll take with you your sustainable transportation ethic and make a difference wherever you're headed. So again, thank you for your service.
Thank you. I hope so.
All right. Rick's got his hand up, and then Tom.
I was going to just quick
No,
ask.
actually, I was clapping,
Hold on.
saluting Daniel, not not raising my hand. And then
All
I
right,
couldn't figure
sorry.
out how to turn it off.
They've made these icons smaller. They're really hard to see what they are these days. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Actually, Barbara, same thing. I was waving them goodbye, but also I just wondered who the members of our committee that were on the audit committee. It wasn't in the staff report. If
Paula,
Michael could tell us.
myself. Who else, Mike? Kevin?
Rick and Tom.
Rick and Tom. Okay. That's the gang. All right,
Thank you.
Victoria. Yeah, thank you all. Victoria?
Well, you could tell by my long question to Dan earlier, seeing these big, having the opportunity for a committee like this to see these big picture things on the agenda is to me very encouraging. And I know that all of us have a lot of, I don't know, exposure to these sorts of ideas, but taking the opportunity maybe in a shorter, we don't have to do it full scale all the time, but to orient us to the larger picture of what the purpose of this group and the sort of, enlightened, I would say, approach to TAMC in general, in some overview type of capacity, reviewing some of these principles, or even just talking about how, to be more effective. I think it's advocacy and community oriented aspect to what we do. And we do it obviously with the work inside the committee, but any opportunities and ability to see the bigger picture, just to check in, I think is super valuable. So, I mean, that was one of my favorite things to ever see in this committee for these years that we've done it, just because even though I know all that stuff and I've taught it as a professor, I still just think it's so uplifting and useful to review it and see how we can take the big picture stuff and drill down and be effective in our own community. So it's just a lobbying a little bit for maybe an agenda item in the future that's a briefer version that picks up on some of the themes today.
Great. Or I would add, what are projects that we've got underway or recent projects that are already demonstrating those principles? I've looked at a lot of that and said, yeah, I see that already happening. It'd be interesting to see an update from them at some point in terms of acknowledging and recognizing those principles already in action in our region. All right. Any other burning announcements, comments, recommendations for future agendas? All right, seeing none, then our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in, I think, 2 months.
Very efficient.
Thank you, everyone.